Welcome to the Phase Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Terrell Humphrey, and over the last half a decade, I've produced over 893 podcast episodes. And throughout this journey, I've learned more about business, marketing, sales, and the business that we're in today. And in addition to that, so what we're going to talk about today is slow is steady. And so for me, learning how to grow a podcast production company is not just about podcasting. It's not just about conversation. Ray, what it do, man? What's going on? What's going on, family? It's not just about interviewing. It's not just about content creation. It's literally about understanding the problem that you're solving. And when I start to understand that I'm really getting into business, the business that I was getting into, it literally made me more aware of what I was doing. I'll give you a prime example. Yesterday, I wanted to talk about this topic in regards of slow is steady. 5 minutes into the conversation, my internet went out. It went out, so I'm like, man, golly, I didn't even know how to fix it. So you know what I was like, at that point, I'm just gonna end it. I'm gonna end the live, then I'm gonna come back to it. Today, I was like, I'm gonna talk about something different. But then I was like, I didn't really talk about what I wanted to speak about yesterday. So let's go ahead and rerun that today because so many different things has happened. And as I'm learning about business, I want to bring you along the journey so that way you're not alone. You can do your business and you can understand and you can start implementing the steps for your business. So again, dang, bro, your name just slipped my I digress. What's going on, bro? HD, what's going on, man? Hewen. I think I said that right. If I didn't, I apologize. But as soon as I saw your name, your Instagram name, it literally just slipped the tip of my tongue. I digress. Yesterday, I talked about slow is steady. And slow is steady is something that I really had to learn. And it's not just about, so yesterday when I was talking about the problem, first you have to identify the problem, then it's building your brand, and then it's through podcasting. And then it's for who I'm building the business for is for real estate developers and to give them peace of mind. When all you have to do is record, we take care of the rest. That's it? Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I appreciate it. The reason why I wanted to talk about that, because when you get into business, you have to understand that there's a process that you have to go into. When I got into business, I didn't recognize the process that was being developed. Okay, hold on. What was being developed was an understanding. What was being developed was the way I was communicating. What was being developed was the way I was putting myself out there. In other words, okay, let's use the terminology of business. As I was putting myself out there, I started to learn about marketing. As I was putting myself out there, I started to learn about sales. As I was putting myself out there, I started to learn about production. You see, it's not the fact that business is just overwhelming and confusing. It's more so it's a process to be understood. For the last half a decade, 5 years, I've literally been learning how to put the processes together. So then when you have a piece of the puzzle and a puzzle come together, you literally are figuring out the knowledge, figuring out the information, and applying that. That taught me more about the business that I was in because I had to learn every process. Slow is steady because you're not going to learn everything all at once. I had to learn. Ray, appreciate it, man. God, I just saw 73 roses. Golly, man. I went up them roses before, but appreciate it, bro. But it's really understanding the slow is steady because you have to figure out how to build your momentum. Over the last half a decade, the momentum has been building because I have been consistently developing. And as I start to understand that you only seek the rewards, you only seek the success if you're consistent. Hold on. If you're not consistent, how can you see the momentum that you're building? Slow is steady. There's a video that I did a while ago. This was a great example, but I'm gonna talk about it today since we're talking about slow is steady. In this video, what I talk about this one? This one was put the solution. You know what? I'm just gonna scratch this one. For this right here, I'm gonna talk about this one for the second one. Because I forgot what I was speaking about yesterday. It was such a good point, but the internet went out, so I forgot. So anywho, this right here is kind of like a race, right? You have your own path, you have your own lane, you have your own journey, you have your own discovery, and this is you on this side, this is another person on this side. This person might have success. This person might be starting. And it doesn't matter when you start, it matters that you start. And so in this example right here, one person is moving along the journey a lot faster than the other person, which means they can get things done. They understand what they're doing, and they have figured it out. Whereas this person on this side, it takes a long time to figure out what the process is. You see, the end goal is to not even get to the finish line, but it's to work towards the finish line. And every time you work towards the finish line, in other words, you're working towards a goal. In other words, you're building momentum. In other words, you're gaining a better understanding. You see, understanding comes from you moving. When you get around people who's moving at a faster pace, sometimes what I was doing was that I was comparing myself. Like, man, how are they able to move this fast? How are they able to close more real estate deals? How are they able to make more revenue? How are they able to have more people on their team? How are they able to have a bigger following? How are they able to make a bigger impact? You see, I was questioning how a lot. But then what I recognize is that everyone's journey is completely different. Everyone's journey is different. When I played football, shout out to Coach Ely, because he gave me one of the best advice I ever had. And he said this, he said, Hump, my last name is Humphrey. He was like, Hump, he said, you a high rep guy. I said, no, I ain't. I said, Coach, like I can get it fast. Like I get the concept of it. He said, no, you ain't. He said, it take you a long time to figure out what you're doing. Even in a long time or you figure out what you're doing, you still don't know what you're doing. I tell you this, it's not the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. It just takes me a long time to process the information. When I start to understand that by myself, I was like, okay, how can I learn a lot more in a short span of time, but increase the amount of things that I'm learning? The reason why I started to increase the things that I was learning, in addition to applying what I was learning, made me learn a lot more in a faster pace. Made me discover the information that I needed to have in order for me to become a better business owner. The better business owner only comes from me understanding that there are certain things that I have to learn, certain information that I have to understand, certain skills that I have to implement. Nonetheless, as I take the time to learn every individual skill and every aspect of the business, I start to understand what business acumen even is. Business acumen is the basic understanding of business. In fact, I'm going to read the definition. I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to read the definition, because the business acumen can't be developed if you're not understanding what you're doing. Hold on. Business acumen. It is the keen ability to understand, navigate, and make sound, rapid decisions regarding business, strategy, and financial performance. In other words, let's make it simple. In simple words, business acumen is the ability to understand how a company makes money, makes smart, fast decisions, and sees how different parts of the business work together to create value. In other words, when you are getting into business, you are learning the pieces of the puzzle. It's kind of like I used this example yesterday when I was talking to somebody, and it was a great example. I was like, oh, that was good. Let's say you got 1,000 pieces, right? You got 1,000 pieces to the puzzle. 1,000 pieces. There we go. To the puzzle. And quick story. I did a while ago when I was in staying in Little Rock, Arkansas. I had got 1,000-piece puzzle, and I didn't recognize how many pieces 1,000 pieces were. Nonetheless, I got this puzzle excited to put it together. But then 1,000 kicked in. I'm like, wait, hold on. 1,000 pieces. That's 1, 2, 3, all the way up 100, 200, 3. That's 1,000 pieces. So when I was excited to put the pieces together, I looked at it for a long time. Didn't even grab one piece to find the second piece. My brother came over one day, and when he came over, he looked at the puzzle. It was like 1,000-piece puzzle. He was like, man, this is 1,000-piece puzzle. I said, yeah, that's why I ain't done it yet. It's 1,000-piece puzzle. He was like, you know what? We're going to do it together. So we put it on the table, me and my brother put it on the table, and I got on one side, he got on the other, and we start finding the pieces of the puzzle. You see, before you find the pieces of the puzzle, you have to put the pieces on the table. Hold on. When you put the pieces on the table, now you start with one. Now you try to find two. Two might be the wrong piece. So you put two down and trying to find another one that will match one. You see, in business, the pieces might not be 1,000, but there are a lot of pieces that build on top of each other. You got to learn marketing. What is marketing? Marketing consists of using social media platforms, speaking engagements, newspapers, billboards, advertising. So, like, there's so many ways to market your business, but you have to understand the way to market your business. In addition to that, that's just one layer of your business. Then you got sales. What is sales? Sales is when you convince, not necessarily convince people, but when you encourage people to take the next step with you. I'm a horrible salesperson. In addition to that, I'm learning how to be a better person that explains the product that we have. Why? Because if you're going to be in business, you have to learn how to sell. It's not just about creating content. It's not just about having a podcast. It's not just about building the brand. It's literally about developing the information so that way people can understand the problem that you solve. The reason why I'm able to explain that is because I've been figuring out how to explain it. You see, it's not the fact that it's not working. It's more so that I had to understand why it was working. Go to different communities. Go to different what is it called? Courses about business. Go to school for business. All these different things I'm applying, it start to make sense now. Even when I was working with my mentors in real estate, I was learning about business. I was learning cold calling. I was learning how to communicate. I tell you this, the greatest lesson that I ever learned while working with my mentors back in real estate, Mike and Rio, Steve Anderson, was that you have to understand what you're doing. You have to understand what you are doing. Slow is steady because it takes time to understand what you are doing. And when I start to understand, I'm like, ooh, let me document this. Let me tell about my experiences and what I'm doing, what's working for me, what's not working for me, what I've tried, what I failed at, what I failed at. It's not the fact that I'm a failure. It's just more so that I'm learning the pieces of the puzzle. As I learn the pieces of the puzzle, I start to understand more about business. I start to understand the problem that I'm solving. I start to understand the solution that's being developed. But that can only come from if I'm able to go slow through the process. If that only can come from if I'm able to understand the problem that I'm solving. It can only come from the solution that's created from the problem. You see, it taught me that focus is the key. When you're focused, you're consistent. When you're consistent, you're focused. When you're focused, you are consistent. Slow is steady because you have to constantly keep moving. You have to consistently keep moving. If you stop moving for a second, take a break, the break that you're taking is absolutely okay because you're learning how to pivot and get back onto course. Before you get back onto course, you got to get off of course. But when you get onto course, you got to figure out the problem that you're solving. The problem that you're solving is the problem for your business. It took me a long time to recognize that the problem that I was solving while helping real estate developers build their brand through podcasting, it's not just about their brand. It's literally about showing your expertise, building a community, building a following, not just in person, not just word of mouth, not just off of referrals, but literally people are coming to you because of your expertise. And when I start to really understand it, I'm like, oh, I got it now. What I got was the business I was looking to understand. Hold on. It was the business that I was looking to understand. And as I start to understand the business, I got more information. You see, let me go back to the screen right here. This right here is an example of slow is steady. It doesn't matter the pace that you're on. What matters is that you're on pace to figure out what you're doing. Oh, that was hard. That was hard. I ain't gonna even lie. That was hard. You see, hold on. Everyone's journey is different. Because just because your journey is different doesn't mean you can't figure it out. What it means is that you have to be patient with the steady. You have to be patient with the slow. You have to be patient with your journey because your journey is going to teach you more about business. Now that it taught me more about business and the problem that I'm solving, I'm like, how can I do this more consistently? How can I really understand the problem I'm solving and solve this problem consistently to the point where I can actually have a business? I can have more impact. I can have more people learn more about who I am. So that way I can grow or follow it or grow something. You see, but before any of that comes, there's a lot of work that has to be completed. 1,000 pieces of the puzzle is you starting your journey. You don't get to 1,000 without starting with 1. You don't get to 1,000 without starting with going to 2. You don't get to 1,000 without going to 3. You don't get to 1,000 without going to 4. You don't get to 1,000 without going to 5. Why? Because the process is slow. Yet when you show up consistently, you are on your journey. Hold on. Over the last 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, I've been doing 90-day challenges trying to figure out the business I want to build. And throughout the challenges, I've literally learned the type of business that I was building. It's not just about a podcast business. It's not just about a business that's in podcasts. It's not just about a business around content creation. No, it's literally about helping real estate developers build their brand through podcasting. Podcasting is just one way. Now think about what comes from that. I literally got online this morning and I saw so many different podcasts. I was like, man, that's a lot of different podcasts. I wasn't expecting that. It was so many different podcasts there, and it was like, man, this is overwhelming. Now the terminology that a lot of people hear that I often say is this: it's oversaturated. It's oversaturated. And just because it's oversaturated doesn't mean you can't get in the market. What it means is that you have to learn how to be different. Okay, that's the next point we're going to hit on. First one we just talked about is that you have to identify your customer. You have to identify the problem that you're solving. The next point that we're going to talk about, this one is great. Hold on. This one is great. So the next point we're going to talk about is this. Dang, what did I just say? Because that was good. What did I just say? You have to identify is that you have to. Dang, what did I just say? That was the one that I was about to talk about. Let me see. Identify your customer. Let me see. Dang, that was. Oh, create a process. I'm just gonna talk about create process. Create a process. So over the last 2 years, year and some change. No, 2024, 2 years. When I start really learning about business, I start learning about the process that I need to develop. And in reality, since 2022, because I read this book and it was called the E-Myth Mastery. I think it was Revisit. It was either Revisit or E-Myth Revisit. And in this book, they talk about understanding your business. And in the example, they used McDonald's as an example, and they said it was one all about pies, and the other stories about McDonald's that was like Ray Kroc had the same belief in his burgers that you do in your pies. It's not the product that makes a difference. It's the process. It's the processes. It's the steps. It's the organization. It's the structure behind your business. Hold on. You see, that alone helps you stand out because you have to understand what you are doing. When I start to really put what I was learning in the books into place, it was like, man, it was a lot. It was so much. It was so overwhelming. It was like, man, how did y'all do it? I'm literally trying to figure it out. Yesterday I had a conversation and I was like, because I had a podcast, I was like, shout out to Carden. And he was like, when you started year one, you didn't have as much information because you were just starting. When you go from year 1 to 2 to 3, you have more information than when you started. But when you go to year 4 or 5, you have the information is built on top of each other. So he was like, I can only imagine what year 7 is gonna be like. I can only imagine what year 10 is gonna be like. I can only imagine what year 20 is gonna be like. And it taught me something. It was like, wait, hold on. That's a good perspective. The information that I have is not going to waste. The information that I have is just building on top of each other. It's kind of like a building block. It's kind of like pieces. It's building upon each other. And when slow is steady, the building phase takes time. So you have block number 1, then you have block number 2, then you have block number 3, then you have block number 4. You see, these pieces are helping you establish your business. Your business doesn't come from only one block. It doesn't come from 2 blocks. Doesn't come from 3 blocks. Doesn't come from 4. Doesn't come from 5. Doesn't come from 6. Doesn't come from 7. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Your business consists of so many different pieces, but when they come together as a piece, you understand your business. And that's what I've been learning over the last half a decade, is how to put the pieces, how to put the blocks together. So that way, like as I'm learning about marketing, as I'm learning about sales, as I'm learning about systems, as I'm learning about finances, as I'm learning about legal, as I'm learning about all these different things, when I'm able to afford a team, well, it's not like I'll be able to start from ground level 0. I'm literally building upon the blocks that's already established. Once they're established, it's like you have to literally continue to develop, grow, and improve yourself. Hold on. When you grow, develop, and improve yourself, you're understanding what you're doing. You see, the podcast production business wasn't even a podcast production business. It started out as a social media business, and it was like, ooh, I'm going to help people with advertising. I'm going to help people with Facebook marketing. I'm going to help people with social media content. I was trying to figure it out. The blocks that I was figuring it out was helping me become more clear. The more pieces that I receive, the more information that I've learned, the more practice that I put into the craft, I start to understand more about the business that I was developing. I have to fail in order to learn. In fact, I have to fail a lot to understand why that failure was important. It's not the fact that failure is not knowledge. It's that failure is knowledge, because I'm able to apply the failure in a different way. I'm able to apply the failure in a different position, at a different level of understanding. I'm able to apply the failure into a new knowledge because I have the experience from the failure. When a lot of people say, I'm not a perfectionist, I'm nowhere near a perfectionist. In fact, I never was a perfectionist. So I can't speak on the behalf of other people who are perfectionists. What I can do is speak upon my behalf. I fail, and I try to fail fast because I don't know what I don't know. Until I try to do it, like the 90-day challenge, I'm on my 7th attempt, day 32. And it's like, well, if I didn't try 6 different times, I wouldn't have understood the business I was doing. I would have been able to ask questions to mentors, to questions to different business programs, to different professors, different schools, different organizations about the thing that I was struggling with. The pieces of the puzzle only came together because the process were created. The process were established. The process was something that I had to learn what to do. It's not just about having a conversation. It's having a format to follow for every conversation that you have. When you have a format to follow, now everything after that has to be consistent. I was trying to figure out what that consists of, because if we can do that for Failures Knowledge Podcast, we can literally take one thing and put it over here for the same exact effect. You see, it's not the fact that it wasn't working. I just didn't recognize that it was working. Slow is steady because you have to recognize why something is working. It's working because you have steps to follow. It's working because you have a process to follow. It's working because you have developed a system. You see, the blocks are pieces of the puzzle to your system being developed. You can't have a business if you don't have steps to follow. I literally remember going to Starbucks one day and I looked out, I was in some business class and they talked about going out to get feedback and understand everything that you was doing. I went to Starbucks and as I was whatever I was ordering for my wife and I looked to my right and I said something that said operations manual. And I saw it, I was like, is the manager on duty? That was like, yeah. I said, can I talk to him? Can I just ask a couple questions? That was like, yeah. Manager came out. I asked the question. I was like, I'm in school for business management. They talk a lot about documenting the process. And quick question. She was like, yeah, you can ask a question. I said, I saw the binder that said the operations manual. I said, why does that point? Why did you need that? Like, why do you need that? And she proceeded to say this. Every morning, you have to do something. Hold on. Every morning you have to do the same exact thing. So that way you don't get behind. If you don't do the thing that you need to do on the day that it needs to be completed, you're going to be behind. So I'm like, why is that important? Like, why do you need that? She was like, well, that's how you run a business. You create steps to follow. Literally like Starbucks franchise, Starbucks is huge. You create steps to follow because the steps that you're following is the process that's being established. Hold on. In the book, E-Myth Mastery, they talk about the same exact thing. Maybe just a different way of saying it. But it was about create the steps, follow the steps. Now you have a process. As simple as that sounds, it is not simple to implement. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, that makes sense. I need to do that for my own business. But how do I do that? With AI, with social media, with all business cohorts, business programs, business school, whatever. I start to understand that the pieces was coming together. You see, it might not be 1,000 pieces. But what about 20 pieces that came together to help me understand about the problem that we're solving from helping real estate developers build their brand through podcasting? See, it's not just one piece that matters. It's pieces that matters. Once you have the pieces, you are different. That's the last one we're going to talk about. Last one we're going to talk about is to be different. In business, this is called your competitive advantage. Your competitive advantage. The Google definition of competitive advantage is this. Competitive advantage. I'm going to do like the regular definition and then I'm going to do like the simple definition because sometimes you got to, when you look up words, the words inside the definition be like, you got to look up those words too. I digress. Anywho, competitive advantage is the superior position a business gains over rivals, allowing it to generate higher sales, better margins, and stronger brand loyalty. Okay, let's make that simple. That simple definition is this. A competitive advantage is a unique strength, resource, or strategy that allows a business to outperform its rivals, attracting more customers and generating higher profits. Okay. Why do I want to read that? I'll tell you this. To be different, you have to know your competitive advantage. When you understand your competitive advantage, you become different. What's my competitive advantage? Okay. My competitive advantage is that we produced over 893 podcast episodes. We've helped over 5 podcasters launch their podcast with confidence. In addition to that, we are positioned to apply the same system that we use at Failures Knowledge Podcast to copy and paste it to your business so that way you can grow your brand as well. What's working for us will work for you because we are our own case study. The case study that we use is the same exact way that we help our customers develop their brand through podcasting. You see, the reason why I like podcasting so much, because I can create a 34-minute podcast episode, right? That's a full conversation. I can, let me draw it out. Let me draw it out. Podcast, let's say 30, 60-minute conversation, right? Hold on, let me put it right here. Hold on. 30, 60-minute conversation. Okay. This right here can literally turn into social media. And then it can turn into blogs. And then it can turn into emails. Then it can turn into summaries. You see, the podcast has limited amount of content that can be created from this. When I started back in 2020 during COVID, I started with my phone. But see, the thing about creating 60-second videos is that you can only do so much with that. You can only do so much with that because it's only 60 seconds. When I got serious about podcasting, I was like, I literally remember recording 7 60-second videos, like 7 videos that was 60 seconds. And it was a lot to create 7 videos for 60 seconds. Not only was it a lot, it was just overwhelming because I literally had to create 7 different topics for 60 seconds. What that taught me is that when you have a podcast, your podcast can do majority of the work to build your brand, because from one conversation, you can have many different digital assets, things that you post across online that will enhance your brand. When I saw that impact, I was like, I need to go all in. I need to go all in and understand why this is important. It's important because, it's important because 60 seconds is not better than 60 minutes. Why? Because 60 minutes is literally 60 seconds repeated. 60 minutes are, it's different. Okay. When you're different equals more results. I became more different because the results that I was looking to accomplish. Since then, since we've been podcasting, we had the pleasure of interviewing a Tampa Bay Buccaneers COO, and before that even happened, I literally was interviewing people who were around me, who were where I was from, and it's not the fact that the interview was bad. No. Every interview that I had was phenomenal because I learned a lot. Nonetheless, before I got to the big names, before I got to people with a lot of reputation, I started where I was at. When you have a podcast and you're building your brand, you're getting comfortable with showing up as yourself. I learned how to show up with as myself. I give you a prime example. Prior to me having the implant surgery, I was literally recording, making content, missing a whole tooth. But I didn't let that stop me, because I'm like, I gotta figure this out. One day I'll be all right, but for today, I have to figure this out. And what that did for me is that it gave me the confidence to fail. I have to be okay with failing publicly, because when I fail publicly, I learn publicly. Okay. What this did for me is that it helped me become different. You see, failure's knowledge is not just a slogan. Failure's knowledge is not just a brand. Failure's knowledge is not just a saying. Failure's knowledge is a movement. The more you fail, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you have to fail to understand what you're doing. So just to recap, everything that we talked about in this video, while slow is steady. Is because number one, we talked about the problem to solve. You have to identify your customer. When you identify your customer, you recognize the problem that you're solving. The second thing that we talked about is you have to create a process around everything that you're doing. When you create steps to follow consistently, what I'm learning is that I'll be able to have a business because of the steps that's being established. Last thing that we talked about is that you have to be different. What's your competitive advantage? I was talking to a mentor, and every time we did like the pitch competition, he always asks, what's your competitive advantage? And I'm like, why you keep asking it? Why you ask, what's your competitive advantage? He said, because if you can't communicate what makes you different, you won't be different. I said, oh, in my mind, I'm like, oh, but in reality, I was like, God, okay, that makes sense. But in reality, I'm like, God, dog, that makes sense. I digress. Lastly, make sure you hit that follow button, hit that subscribe. And if you're looking to get around a community who talks about failure and make failure okay so you can learn, this is the channel, the community, the podcast for you, because we're not just talking about failure. We're literally talking about failure, how to implement it, and how to improve it for your business, for yourself, and for your organization, because it starts with the thought, and the thought turns into trying. That trying might turn into failure, but that failure helps you gain the knowledge to help you understand what you're doing. So if you're looking for that, make sure you hit that follow, hit that subscribe, because we are getting around like-minded people who are okay with failure, because failure is knowledge. Let me know in the comments your biggest takeaway on why slow is steady. And lastly, don't be afraid to fail, because failure is knowledge, and you never know the lesson that you're going to learn once you fail. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all in the following video.